Yeah, I'm sorry. May I request him to first welcome all the speakers with a memento. Sir, please honor Dr. Warakom Paisam. May I request Dr. Dharminder Nagar to welcome Shri Arvind Vachasvi. Dr. Subramaniam, please welcome Mr. Rohtashmal. Mr. Nagar, please welcome Dr. Anupam Sibal. Dr. Subramaniam, one more honor. Please welcome Dr. Mayo Thant from Myanmar. Dr. Mayo Thant. And Mr. Roswaidin Mohammad Zain. Dr. Subramaniam, please give your welcome address.
Thank you, Malika. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and our very distinguished panel. I'm really delighted to be here as the chairman of the Healthcare Committee of the PhD Chamber. I first of all want to thank the Chamber for giving me this delightful opportunity. We are all aware that there is a changing scenario in the whole world, and particularly with Asia, India, and the ASEAN countries. The changing demographics has brought about major concerns. One is the care of the elderly, the increasing number of the non-communicable diseases, the residual communicable disease that we still have, and limited awareness, limited access, and certainly limited affordability of health care in this part of the world. We know that when you look at the ASEAN countries and India, I think there are very few countries who are in a position at this point in time to invest very large amounts on their health care, yet we know it is necessary. Singapore and Indonesia have substantially escalated their healthcare investments. Countries like Russia, China, Brazil, and Korea have managed to increase the number of insured patients to over 90%, and with the unification of the various insurance systems. Many of the countries, like our own, do rely a lot on, number one, private health care, and there is a fair amount of out-of-pocket expenses involved in these. On the other hand, we can look at the strengths that we have in our system. Our systems, we are able to provide a quality, high-quality tertiary health care, both in the private and the government systems, particularly with partnerships in a big way. We are able to, over the last 30 years, there's been a sea change in the delivery of tertiary health care, and the private players have contributed quite substantially to increasing both the availability of expertise, skilled manpower, and hospital beds. There have been ongoing investment and good quality research and innovations in not only providing good clinical outcomes, but also in making sure that it improves patient safety and also make sure it is a value for money transaction. We know that between the ASEAN countries, there is a huge amount of patients and migration of skilled workers around. Almost to several millions. We also know that there is a large number of increasing requirement of various advanced diagnostics, advanced therapeutics, and procedures like organ transplants, robotic surgeries, and there is a need for, ever-increasing need for high-end diagnostic equipment. But the focus for all of us would now need to be of wellness. Preventing diseases would remain the best and the most cost-effective way of addressing these issues. The WHO would estimate that the per capita expenditure on healthcare would be around $540 US. Singapore has done well with over 4 times that kind of amount. We also know there are countries which offer cost-effective value healthcare. We know Thailand has over $2 billion coming in the form of medical value tourism. Malaysia, similarly, over $197 million. India has been expanding its role in tertiary care for a long time. I know hospitals in this city, including hospitals like the Apollo Hospital, have a fairly large footprint in Myanmar, Cambodia, Philippines, particularly with the pediatric liver transplants, in Indonesia and in Vietnam. We are all looking to see how, as partners and coming together, we are able to support each other, how we are able to support each other's system, and make sure that together, as a region, we become not only independent, we also become the focus or the hub for people to travel for healthcare. It's also important that it also opens new avenues for business transactions in the field of pharmacology, medical and surgical equipment, super specialty care, telemedicine and facilities, emergency relief systems, capacity building, insurance sector, medical value tourism. These are some of the healthcare aspects which we need to address. And like Malika mentioned right in the beginning, all that happens only when you have good value and nutrition, which is important to keep us healthy. So I'm pretty sure this session will have some interesting thoughts. We have some amazing speakers who represent several countries from here, and I would happily say that this is going to be one of the fine sessions, and I'm delighted to welcome you all once again. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Subramaniam. Dr. Mayo Thand has just joined. May I request you to welcome him with a memento, please? Being the moderator of this session, I have the powers to alter the sequence of speakers, and on request, as Mr. Rohtashman has to leave early, I'm requesting him to come and deliver his address. Sir, I'll also request you to please be brief, 5 minutes at the most.
4.
Okay, thank you.
So what is it, 4, 10, 7? As they say, the balance will be profit. Thank you so much, PhD, for your kind invitation to come and speak to you on agriculture. And I'm happy this session, by accident, is beginning with agriculture. We wouldn't need a lot of pharmaceuticals if we paid more attention to food, and the right kind of food. Yes, which is true. Let me make my case for a very deep engagement with ASEAN. This part of the world has traditionally suffered from low productivity. The gains of science, technology, and mechanization actually started from the West. And the advantage that the West had, apart from science and technology, was they also had access to huge farmlands, which could absorb technology. In a country like India, and a lot of the ASEAN countries we're talking about, the individual farmer finds himself in a position of not being able to afford technology, not being able to buy technology, and therefore productivity in India and in this part of the world is arguably between 20 and 30% of global standards per acre, i.e. the amount of food that we can create out of our current land holdings, in India particularly, will go a very, very long way in making sure that the universe has enough food by 2050. We are only at 26% productivity. In crops like wheat and rice, we are at 50%. In things like tomatoes, we are at a paltry 3%. Which means the headroom that is available is absolutely astounding. And the headroom can only be covered with the application of science and technology, which unfortunately farmers cannot afford on two counts. One, affordability, the technology, and the other, something that is rapidly changing, is access to education, farm financial management. In fact, seeing the farm as an enterprise. What I do for a living now, post my corporate life, is a startup that gets technology on a pay-for-use basis into the hands of the farmer. We are arguably called the taxi service or the Uber of farm mechanization. We reach the farmer, our operators do the job, and we charge per acre. Moving on from there, using mobile apps, using the telecom network, and now more and more using video, we are able to influence the farmer by way of education, as well as making the farmer aware how productivity can be increased. In fact, in recent times, just in the last few months, we've had opportunities in the farms that we operate in to raise rice productivity by as much as 35% per acre by merely using a variety of machines, bringing down the cost of mechanical application. Therefore, by extra volume and and bringing down costs, we've raised profits at the hands of the farmer by as much as 50%. That goes a long way to doubling farmers' income. By doubling farmers' income, spoke about total income. But if you double the profit, that's good enough. And we've been able to treble that. Now, why I'm saying all this is, and I take note of the note that has been provided to me on the, and I'm sure your dockets will have it, on the number of programs that India and ASEAN are working on, and they are mind-boggling. The question will remain, each one of them will be a proof of concept, each one of them will be proven on the ground, however long it takes. Agriculture, unfortunately, is a slow burn business. You get one chance this season and the next chance 1 year later, because the same season will only come 1 year or 6 months later. So it's not something that you can rapidly prototype like in an industrial system. Having said that, the worry that I have with this very, very long list is it's going to take a long time. Technology is a slow burn business. If you look at pharmaceuticals, it takes 8, 10, 12 years to build a molecule and then deliver it to the ground and test it. It's not very different in agriculture and changing agricultural practices. But there is something you can do, or we can do, is the total reservoir of technology, practices, education that we already have through centuries. Can that be mass deployed? Because the first jump in productivity will come from the reservoir of technology and practices we already have in our possession. And here is where probably India can play a role. We are, again, we can debate this, but given the size of our lands, roughly between 350 million fertile acres, we are able to draw now technology from around the globe to be able to apply on our ground, especially as service firms increase. We're not talking about technology production firms. As service firms increase, my little firm is just one of the beginning ones in that. This particular application mode of technology can now start getting into ASEAN. And I already have dialogues happening with a few countries in South Asia to be able to carry the same model there. So keeping due respect to the constraints that have been placed on me on time and to keep it short, the immediate application that I can find for technologies that are coming into India or technologies that are being now, practices that are now being created in India, and their massification using telecom and mobile. I think there's an immense scope for ASEAN and India, or all of ASEAN, including India, to collaborate rather deeply on this particular subject. While we do this, we should not lose sight of agendas already created. Agendas that various delegations and so on have created. Laboratories are working together, the institutes of agriculture are working together and so on. And a lot of them at government level, arguably government moves at its own pace. But the demands of agriculture will not wait, because rapidly the West is becoming increasingly a consumer, and the sources of supply will shift to gravitate to our part of the world. So I will end my little speech with the appeal that ASEAN, India included, need to work very, very closely to deploy. And the slogan that I'd like to leave behind on technology is, deploy, we'll develop later, because we already have reservoirs. Thank you so much.